What are scary facts about the human body that don't sit right with you? Story 1. A heart transplanted into a new body will begin beating once it gets warm enough, without any outside stimulation. Story 2. The fact that you can drop dead at any time from an aneurysm always made me uneasy. It's not common, but the chance is what really gets me. Answer. In my experience, it's not uncommon. I've known 4 people who have died of an aneurysm. 2 were friends of the family, didn't really know them well. 1 was a kid in my high school, and 1 was a coworker who I had become friends with. Couple weeks after her 30th B-Day, she was loading her dog into her truck, turned to her GF and said, "I feel funny," then collapsed. I'm terrified of aneurysms. Story 3. Honestly, anything about pregnancy is just terrifying. Like, your nose can just grow BC, you're pregnant? Why? Answer. I read recently about eclampsia that can come on out of the blue with no early warning signs and can eliminate you really quickly. A really horrible passing that generally includes fitting, sometimes for days, until you die. Normally, there are signs of preeclampsia and your medical staff can pick up on it in time. But in rare cases, it just happens out of the blue. Pregnancy and childbirth are terrifying. I honestly don't know how anyone can sign up for it on purpose. So many weird and terrifying things that may or may not eliminate you. Story 4. Your consciousness emerges from an uncountable number of electrochemical signals in your brain and nervous system in a particular way. Who are you? Answer. Another interesting thing is that it doesn't have to be electrochemical signals either. A living thing can have electrochemical signals of an uncountable number and not be conscious. A machine can do this too while still not being conscious. But if a machine can think, then it's not just the chemicals in your brain that make it possible, but electricity organized in such a way to make it wonder at all. So what are we? Story 5. Everything that we need to live is at the same time slowly eliminate us. Oxygen, the sun, our food, etc. is essential for our lives, but also slowly shortens our telomeres or damages our DNA and brings us closer to passing with every division of our cells. We are programmed to die at the genetic and cellular level, and at best, we can stave it off for a few years with better habits. Story 6. We have damaged cells that can turn to cancer in, or bodies at all time. Most just repair themselves, or die of. Story 7. The fact that your immune system isn't aware of your eyes, and if learned of their existence, it could attack them for being a foreign body and blind you. Answer. I had an allogeneic stem cell transplant 7 years ago, and so far the main GVHD symptoms have been eye-related. I have this tendency to anthropomorphize bodily functions, and I just keep imagining my newly annexed white blood cells waging war against the indigenous guerrilla forces in my eyeballs. Are they even aware of the unofficial peace treaty that the previous regime had with the ocular oligarchy? Or do they dismiss it entirely as an artifact of a weak, corrupt dynasty? Story 8. Knowing that you're born with all your adult teeth sitting inside your gums and jaw doesn't sit well with me after seeing the photo of the toddler's skull full of teeth. Story 9. Fallopian tunes are not straight out to the left and the right. They are sort of like thin hairs, and they float around the lower abdomen. My ultrasound tech told me this while furiously searching for them once. Story 10. Your nose is within the triangle of passing area on your face. Essentially, what that means is if you get a bad infection somewhere within or on your nose, the bacteria can spread up to your brain and eliminate you faster than you can treat it. Answer. My dad had that problem. Result was a herpes infection in the brain, herpes encephalitis. 1 month coma, and about a year of rehab before he could walk again. He was basically the best case scenario. All that's left are some balance and bladder issues, and he basically aged 10 years. Most people suffer serious permanent brain damage if they don't die from it. Recently, I had a herpes outbreak after a cold, and one blister was almost inside my nose. Barely slept for a week. Story 11. That your own body can flick a switch and try and eliminate you. Sepsis is a dysregulated immune response to an infection. Your body gets so overwhelmed that your own immune cells start attacking itself as well as the pathogen. It's a strange combination or inflammatory and anti-inflammatory processes. The damage can be so great that it can eventually lead to organ failure and passing. Eliminate more people worldwide than breast, prostate, and bowel cancer combined, yet many have never heard of it. Oh yeah, and even with treatment, you still have 30-50 chance of passing, and 50 of people that survive end up with disability or long-term deficits. Story 12. The weird shoot that happens with pregnancy. My first pregnancy was an ovarian pregnancy. I was like, how TF did this happen? In my second pregnancy, I went partially blind in one eye. Apparently, pregnancy blindness is a thing. Sometimes eyesight returns and sometimes it doesn't. Met a lady who told me that her last pregnancy left her with her bladder fused to other internal organs. I could go on, but you get the picture. Answer. I got weird stuff too. I had pregnancy-induced arthritis in my hands, fingers, feet, and toes. I also had severe, inexplicable swelling that was so intense that I was literally starting to have blood vessels rupture and cause massive bruising from my belly button to the tips of my toes. I literally was unable to walk the last 3 days of my pregnancy. No preeclampsia, no blood clots. The doctors and nurses were baffled, and they ended up inducing me because they didn't know why the swelling was happening, but they weren't going to let it continue to find out. Story 13. Fudge random hairs show up on my ear and neck and nose. I look all the time and wake up, and a hair is sprouted out overnight. Story 14. That your female body part can tear up all the way to your anus and form just one hole during labor, and also that your entire reproductive system can prolapse and just fall off. Story 15. That everyone has different ways that they think. Some people hear voices and see pictures, but others see things but don't hear things. Some hear things but don't see things. But the thing that scares me is that some people just have a black void in their mind, so do they think at all? Answer. I have the black void. I can't picture stuff, and I don't have a mental thought process, like inner monologue. I do think, haha, it's just more abstract and hard to explain. My brain is more based around feelings and sensory stuff, like if I'm hungry, for example, instead of thinking I'm hungry, I just feel the sensation of hunger. Or if I have a lot of tasks to complete, instead of going over the list in my head, which I assume people do, I just feel the feelings of overwhelm, stress, or, on a good day, productivity. Also, I talk to myself a lot, BC. I can't form cohesive thoughts. In my head, and doing it out loud really helps. Story 16. Our tongue. The irony of being disgusted on what we lick, when in reality, our own mouth contains hundreds, if not thousands, of dirty bacterias. Story 17. Despite decades of surgery, something as simple as being put under for a knee job could eliminate you. I know you sign papers and are told this could happen, but when it does, it's shocking. Story 18. How the human body can be so resilient and yet also succumb to the most seemingly simple injuries. People that are still alive after being bisected, shot in the head, fallen from high places. And yet there's people who literally just slip and fall in the tub and die immediately, or just one punch and they hit the pavement and they're dead. Story 19. If you don't keep up with your prenatal vitamins and good nutrition, which isn't accessible for a lot of people, the fetus sucks the calcium from your bones and you get brittle bones, broken bones, and osteoporosis. Fetus sucks up other nutrients too, like the very definition of parasite. Story 20. I'm just always thinking any latent problem could make you drop dead on the spot. Sudden heart attacks or cardiac arrests, aneurysms, etc. Story 21. The human body is a finely tuned masterpiece of biological engineering that is just a tiny chemical imbalance away from critical failure. Story 22. Anything at all in your body can, in a fraction of a second, on its own, just decide it doesn't want to work anymore. If that something happens to be important to keep you alive, whoops. Story 23. I'm not even a woman, but the dangers and amount of things that can go wrong during pregnancy is terrifying to me. Story 24. All those mites on my skin, crawling, mating, pooping, dying, and that I'll never ever be able to wash off all of them. That, and also our DNA having viral fragments. Story 25. How much pregnancy actually changes your body? People think it's 9 to 10 months of inconvenience and then you're done. Nope. 2 months after having my daughter, I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune disorder that I had absolutely no symptoms of before I got pregnant. Now, I'm 29 with a shower chair because showering is so exhausting. We had to hire a cleaner once a week because the fatigue makes it almost impossible for me to clean regularly, and it wasn't fair for it to all fall on him. My meds are $11,000 a month without insurance. I have to undergo colonoscopies 3 times a year. I see around 5. Different specialists. I was previously trying to be plant-based, but had to stop because basically everything plant-based people eat, beans, legumes, fruits, and veggies, whole grains, causes inflammation for my disease, and also my bleeding colon. Causes anemia, so I have to eat meat, plus take supplements, plus do iron infusions just to still have low iron. Yay. Story 26. My brother had a benign brain tumor removed. His surgeon said that all of us likely have tumors in our body right now, like freckles and moles, but inside of us, perhaps in our brains even. They usually aren't a problem unless they press on a nerve or something, which is what happened with my brother. Story 27. That the female body can make a whole human being. They just grow inside of you and become a whole other person. It was so strange going about my day and thinking how I'm growing a human right now. Story 28. That the anus can push poop out faster than a gun fires a bullet. The human body is a fascinating thing. Story 29. Feeling my heartbeat scares me. Like, how are you doing it all on your own, buddy? And when are you going to decide you've had enough and just stop? I'll never know. Story 30. Under the right circumstances, blunt trauma to the body, without laceration, can push surface bacteria through the skin and cause necrotizing fasciitis. Story 31. We don't usually feel the muscles being used as our skeleton pillows. But if you think about the fact that you are housing bones, you can start to feel the secured bones that are wrapped tightly by muscles. From those muscles, you will notice surrounding tendons and muscles intertwined with various sized tubes of blood. Skin is a vital part of survival. Being sensitive to climate, cuts, and any other outer stimuli, including the pleasure sensors too. That exact same shoot is happening inside you, and you're never not touching your own muscles. fudge the fact we subconsciously ignore our own. Nose, to have better sight. We're all constantly touching our insides. Story 32. Not really a scary fact, but there's a thing called a vaginal septum. I have one. Basically, it's a flap of skin inside the vaginal opening that separates it into two sides, like your nose septum. It makes it impossible for me to comfortably put anything other than a single finger in there. IDK if I'll ever get it taken care of, since I don't really like intimacy or men. Haha. Story 33. That your appendix can just decide it wants to explode, and that it can and has been mistaken for period cramps. That an organ literally exploding can be on the same level as something most women go through once a month for nearly a week for the majority of their life. Story 34. Microbiomes are so important. I forget how much percentage we are actually us and not them, but I think we are actually less of us than them, if that makes any sense. I am less of me than I am of whatever makes me, me. This does not sound any better. Somebody? Story 35. That we are essentially giant meat robots programmed to procreate with other meat robots, hopefully to produce more meat robots. Story 36. You're telling me that the heat beat heard in the ultrasound is still going on all day, every day, up until now? Story 37. It's possible for a fertilized egg to descend into the uterus, but then go up into the opposite fallopian tube. Ask me how I know. Ahomat. Story 38. No one can explain why we sleep or what is happening when we are dreaming. We all just accept hours of unconsciousness each day. Story 39. Having a single heart feels foolhardy. The best systems have built-in redundancy. Yes, I'm jealous of Gallifreyans. Story 40. The reality that each nanosecond of your existence could be your last. Lamau, it is so wild to think about. Story 41. One thing that recently pissed me off is the immune system. When you get infected, your body's solution is to eliminate you to eliminate the virus. Taking medicine is not to stop the virus from spreading, it's to stop the pain from your own body trying to heat itself to passing. Story 42. Your brain only gets some electric impulses from your eyes, ears, and skin. You have no idea about how the world really looks, feels, sounds, tastes. You are just imagining how it is. Basically, you is locked inside a little room inside the skull and using the rest of the body to assume what's going on. Story 43. Life can be created in an act of pleasure for men in which they can weaponize their body and cause harm to women, potentially resulting in disfigurement or passing, and generational trauma if they decide to not stick around for the offspring. Not implying all or most intimacy. Baby making is like this, but the fact it can happen like this sucks. Story 44. Maybe not scary, but why does the anus sometimes become angry when in use? It has one job. Don't get irritated about it. Story 45. Your body can just forget how to breathe automatically for no reason. This might correct itself, leave you dependent on a machine for the rest of your life, or eliminate you outright. Story 46. If you have abdominal surgery that requires the entire area to be opened, the surgeon can remove your intestines, drape them over the side of your body, and simply drop them back in, to where your body will reorganize those bowels back to where they were before they were removed. Kinda cool, kinda scary. Story 47. The fact that during pregnancy organs of the mother get pushed out of the way to accommodate the fetus. Story 48. Look at your arms and hands. They used to be legs and feet, just they stopped being used that way and evolved into what we have today. Story 49. There is such disgusting, deadly bacteria in your colon that when my family member had a rupture after a freak fall, within 48 hours he was dead because his blood went septic, got up to pee in the night, had an unexpected fall, and 2 days later, he was gone. Story 50. When you receive a kidney transplant, they usually just leave the old poorly working kidney in, unless it's diseased. There are people out there with like 4 or 5 kidneys. It's wild. Story 51. How absolute shoot our knees actually are. Like, they really truly are the weakest bones joints if you look at them. Badly designed, badly constructed, yet they hold up our bodies, do all that work, and we're supposed to rely on them our entire lives. But they really do suck for the purpose of upright walking and aren't meant to last as long as we do. Story 52. Not necessarily scary, but could be with how popular keto diet has been. The increased risk of cardiovascular disease, nutrient deficiencies, impaired intestinal function, impaired kidney function which can affect your RBC production, and BP, kidney stones, fatty liver, etc. It's a great short-term diet if you need to lose weight in like 3 to 6 months, but it's not the safest option for long-term. Especially since a diet should be a lifestyle and not a short-term fad. Any popular diet isn't that sustainable. You should aim to incorporate healthier habits. Do things that are actually attainable and maintainable. Story 53. How some viruses can embed their genome into our genes and can pretty much stay in our body for the rest of our lives. Herpes simplex virus is an example. The infection can go dormant and then re-emerge when the immune system is compromised or when the body is going through stress. Fun times. Story 54. The fact that an infection in your gums or teeth become dangerous real quick. It makes sense because it's so close to your brain, but it terrifies me. Story 55. Humans can eat such a wide variety of food, from plants, seeds, nuts, dairy, to meat and seafood. It's surprising we can digest so many things. Story 56. That medicine is essentially the art science of debugging a production system that you don't have the luxury of turning off to look under the hood, else you might never get it to turn back on again. Story 57. That your brain is actively trying to eliminate you, either by severe mental illness or putting itself in dangerous situations like riding a motorcycle. Story 58. Ocular immune privilege. Under the right circumstances, the regular immune system will want to attack the eyes. Story 59. Less than half of our cells aren't even ours. They're the microflora that keeps us going. A lot of what influences our behavior, especially in matters of diet and how we respond to certain kinds of medication, is influenced by millions of these little microorganisms on a daily basis. Story 60. Type 1 diabetic and another pregnancy horror. The hormones produced during pregnancy prevent your body from receiving the signals that your glucose is dropping. So, you could be walking around just fine and then wake up in the ER. The baby gets what he needs and you're left with whatever, if anything. Story 61. Autoimmunity. Exposure to something that turns on something so uniquely devastating to a human being's functioning. Story 62. There are tiny creatures living in your eyelash sockets. They eat the dead tissue material that would otherwise flake off and get into your eye. It's a true symbiosis between human and microorganism. Story 63. Your brain can live for weeks, potentially months after you're dead, and your ears still function the whole time too. Story 64. If your immune system becomes aware you have eyes, it will start to attack them, causing you to go blind. Story 65. The fact that you could just be living life and suddenly cancer says FCKU, and now some bit of your body is now turning into a separate organism and trying to eliminate you. Yes, that is how cancer works. Story 66. That there are thousands of face mites on your face at all times that eat your dead skin, and you can't wash them off. Story 67. I have fibromyalgia. I experience constant pain all over my body for reasons no one is quite certain of. Did you know the joints in your toes could hurt? Sometimes I can't wear certain clothes because it hurts my skin. I can wake up from 8 hours of sleep, drink a coffee or two, and immediately go back to sleep because I am chronically fatigued. Story 68. Your immune system is unaware. You have eyeballs until it is and attacks what it thinks is a foreign body, and you go blind. Story 69. I think it's dumb that the brain, the control center of the body, can't properly communicate what's going wrong with you. You're telling me with all the little neurons and whatnot inside, if I, say, had stomach cancer, I wouldn't know about it until it started to hurt? My brain can't just communicate, yo, there's something going on in your stomach that you need to take care of before it gets to the point where it's nearly too late? Shoot jerk brain. Also that the brain apparently will just filter out things that don't make sense sometimes. Best example is when a sentence says the when it should only say the. How much is being hidden from us by our brains? Are these the same brains that allegedly have us do those motions while we sleep because the brain is just making sure we're still alive? Story 70. And few cans of beans automatically make any room yours. No one will ever dispute it because you are the one providing the natural gas. XD. Story 71. The fact that mites that are so small I can't see them are living, fudge, reproducing, and dying in my eyelashes and entire body right now. Story 72. Unless I die consciously from stepping on a landmine or something similar, I will never see or handle any of the organs of my own body that have so far kept me and only me alive for 54 years. They don't work for anyone except me, and I have never touched them or seen them. It doesn't worry me, it annoys me. They're mine. Story 73. I got diagnosed with cancer in my mid-30s and had zero clue I was sick. My WBCs were over 100,000 and my platelets were 750,000. I have a ton of medical health anxiety now because what if another type develops and I don't know about it? The one I have is treatable but incurable. Story 74. That it's astounding it works at all and we don't all have cancer from mutations incurred by cell division. Story 75. If you have migraines regularly, you most likely have lesions in your brain from them. We still don't know a lot about these lesions or the long-term effects associated with them. Story 76. It is necessary for the body to remain functional to become completely senseless for an extended period of time, regularly. What kind of craziness is that anyhow? Like I'm a conscious, functional being. But what if, maybe, just for fun, sometimes I was just the being, but in such a way that it still functioned well enough without conscious acts? That's crazy. That's terrifying. If I want to remain functional, I have to allow non-functionality? Story 77. You can get problems with talking after having surgery in the upper abdomen because of the nervous recurrence deciding going from the brain straight to work is mainstream. Story 78. Why we have an appendix? Doctors don't even know what it used to do. That's scary. And you can die if it ruptures? Remember Houdini? he died from a ruptured appendix. Answer: I have heard that recent research indicates that the appendix is like a storage room for good bacteria that the body can utilize when dealing with illness. Not sure if it has been proven yet, but after getting mine removed, I was curious about what the appendix does. Also, it can sometimes grow back, not necessarily completely, but a little appendix stub. Story 79. The brain will eliminate the rest of the body in order to save itself. In allergic reactions, the throat swells to protect the brain by not allowing anything to reach it. Story 80. Your eyes and your body have separate immune systems. If your body ever found out that you have eyes, it would immediately eliminate them and you'd go blind. Story 81. Your body can eliminate you from actively trying to stop you from being poisoned. When someone has a severe allergic reaction, your body is like, OMG, I'm being poisoned. Your blood pressure bottoms because your body is trying to divert the blood, carrying said poison, away from your heart and brain. It's the same thing for septic shock in a massive infection. Bye-bye blood pressure. Gotta keep that infected crap away from your core. Unfortunately, septic shock carried a 30 mortality rate, so needless to say, your body is super good at preventing poison from reaching your brain and heart, one way or another. Story 82. If you get a kidney transplant, they just jam it in your pelvis. They never actually get rid of the old ones. Story 83. I once read that the body and the eyes have different immune systems, and if the body found out about the eyes, it would destroy them, or something like